Hello, Sharks fans! My name is Jacob Boyd, and I'll be presenting to you today the San Jose Sharks versus the Las Vegas Golden Knights Game 1 review. But getting right into it, Sharks fans, the Las Vegas Golden Knights beat the San Jose Sharks by a final score of 4-1 in the last night's game. The Sharks, I thought, played a relatively hard-nosed style of play and had a ton of hits. But overall, I felt like there was just a lack of, team speed and defensive awareness and key critical moments. There were only about 3 players that, kind of stood out to me on the forward groups, that showed a desire to win, shift in and shift out, and that was Zadina, Smith, and Sturm. So, 3 out of 12 players, Sharks fans, out of the forward group is just not good enough effort to win a hockey game for that matter. So, that's just a recipe for losing hockey. And unfortunately, it happened on opening night versus, this defending Stanley Cup champions. So Coach Quinn, instilled playing with speed and toughness throughout, a 60-minute effort. But, I felt and many Sharks fans felt, and, just anybody watching this game has felt that, they did play with toughness, but, they just didn't play with speed. And they didn't have that through a 60-minute frame. They really had it, only for spurts at a time. And it just was a lack of effort in key critical times, especially in that 2-minute period of in the second period where the Sharks just got outscored, and outshot and just outworked, and they scored 2 goals because of it, which made it 3-1 at the end of 2. But relatively within the first period, it was tied 1-1, and it was a great hockey game, with a lot of back and forth chances, mainly coming from Vegas. But the Sharks did get some opportunity where they had, you know, some opportunity in terms of the offensive zone with like Luke Cunnin and things of that nature, but just not getting great, shots off, more of like fan shots and things of that nature. So just overall, lack of, scoring in the final third. Also, the the Sharks also lost a lot of races to the puck. Kind of like how it was last year at times, where a loose puck always went to the other team. I felt like this team did do a little bit better job in terms of not losing out on every battle, but they did lose a lot of them to where they got hemmed into their own zone and just played kind of like a zone defense, if you want to call it. I know Coach Quinn wants it to where the puck gets on the the outer skirts of the offensive zone in terms of along the boards and along the blue line. He doesn't care if it gets out there, but I just wish that the Sharks would push up and create more turnovers, and at least just make an honest effort to retrieve pucks when when the shots are put on goal. I think that you saw the Vegas Golden Knights players really just whenever there was a shot on our net, maybe a rebound was kicked out, maybe it didn't get all the way through, but the Vegas players were always beating us to the puck. Our defenders were just never, in the right positions to win that puck, and it was just unfortunate. Now I don't think that the effort was lacking in terms of going after the puck, because I think that we were trying to battle. It's just they weren't getting to the loose pucks. I just felt like Las Vegas always had a step on us. The Sharks turned the puck over too much in the defensive zone as well. Just reminded me of a whole lot of last year where the Sharks cannot just chip it out of our own net or our own defensive zone. What they would do is they would always pass it behind the net. You know, Mario Ferraro, last like we all like all the defensemen did that last year, and it was like kind of what I call ring around the rosy, where it's always the defenseman getting forechecked and never being able to get it out of the zone. We're always trying to get it to the correct guy, which is fine, but then that correct guy gets it, and it is then forechecked again, and then they just kind of throw it back behind the net again, and then just more forecheck to hem us into our own zone. So just too much of that. Just what I would like is just the Sharks to get it out of the defensive zone and at least have our forwards go, and maybe we lose the puck in the neutral zone, but that's better than just being hemmed in our zone, in my opinion. I wanted to get into the Sharks lines though, and tell you guys how each one of them fared and how each player did. So getting into it, the starting line of the Sharks uh, for opening night was Zadina, Hurdle, and Hoffman. Zadina was the best forward on the ice tonight, not just because he had the goal, but every shift he had the desire to win the puck battles, and he had the speed and strength to create turnovers. So he was one of those guys that really showed me that he wanted to, be on the top line. And, I feel like he's going to be the one that's going to start things for the Sharks moving forward. So, moving into the center position, you had Tomas Hurdle, where I felt like he had glimpses of being really good in the offensive zone, especially along, behind the net or along the boards. But I feel like he uses, all of his effort and energy on that side of the rink. And then he lacks that defensive, intensity or defensive quality. Um, for using his size and I would even say speed, I guess, so to speak, to create turnovers in the defensive zone, but he doesn't. He rather just use it all in the offensive zone and then lack defensively and getting pucks out of his own zone. He rather carry it out rather than chip it out and get a change. I would like to see him do better on that defensive end of the ice where we could get pucks out. Um, then you had on the right wing, Mike Hoffman, where I thought had a really disappointing game. I know that he had a great preseason, he had a great training camp, and then he had a performance like this where just really disappointing. And I just didn't see him all game long. He may have had a few decent shifts where he chips it in deep when he's tired and gets off the ice. But I mean, that's basically it. And he had one shot on goal. He really showed an offensive prowess this training camp, but he didn't show it in tonight's game. I hope that that's not a reflection of what we're going to get out of him, throughout the season. I don't think so. I think it was just a one off, and I hope that he comes back in game two against the Abs and really shows what he can do, because I know he can score the puck. I know that he's going to be offensively gifted. I just did not see it in tonight's game. Overall, this line in particular was just okay for me. I don't say that they were bad, because I don't think that they were bad. I don't say, they had that one good moment with Zadina's goal. They had a few other good moments with just single players working on the line at one time, but never all cohesive and really skating as a unit. So that would be what I want to see in the next game, is how can these guys all skate hard at once and create opportunities, and not just create opportunities, but multiple opportunities is what I want to see. And then you had line two, which you had William Eklund, Mikkel Granlund, and Luke Cunnin. Eklund had spurts of winning puck battles along the boards, and doing some good work down low, but never really amounting to all that much. Also, defensively, he was responsible, but got puck watching on multiple occasions, which again looks like the Sharks go into like some defensive shell and get hemmed into their own zone. It's because the team is not working cohesively as a unit to push the puck carriers to making bad passes and then getting their sticks in passing lanes, which then allow for other teams to exploit that defensive shell. And there's always somebody really just open because they're just sagging and clogging the middle of the ice, which is fine at times, but not on multiple shifts and it happening over and over again. You do not want to see that in hockey. You can see that in a few shifts, but you got to work hard in the NHL to keep your spot. And unfortunately, Eklund had some good spurts and some bad spurts tonight. But centering this line, you had Mikkel Granlund, who was virtually non-existent on the ice tonight. He also may have had a minor injury in the third period where he was kept out of the on the ice for very long periods of time. So that could have been a factor for his play tonight where he wasn't fully healthy. But other than that, just not a good game from Mikkel Granlund. And I would love to see him, I don't think he might even play next game just because of, how he was kept out and of the third period for a long stretch of the third period. I don't think it was, because of his play. I think it was more so something was like lower body was, bothering him. But then you had Luke Cunnin on the right wing on the second line, who, was in a lot of good scoring positions tonight. He had a few, opportunities where he fanned on, the shot where you would hope that he would get on the good, end of it and get some of those scoring chances to be on net. But there was a one particular that was right in front of the goalie where he just was, he beat the defender, honestly, and should have had a tap in goal. And he just straight up missed it. And then another one in the slot area where, he just completely fanned on the shot. It was actually in a good location. And yes, he was kind of getting, you know, the defender was right on him, but he still should have got the shot away and get a good shot on net, but just didn't. But he was in good positions, and so he was in those positions, in training camp, in preseason. He did the same exact things. He also fanned on those shots in preseason, which is not a good sign if this keeps happening. But either way, he's been in good position in the preseason and to the start of the season where he's putting himself in good scoring opportunities. You just hope that he can start capitalizing on them. He also was like the leading time on ice minutes leader out of all the forward group, which was interesting to see because I think that coming from an ACL injury, I thought Coach Quinn would be light on him in terms of his workload right from the beginning of the season, but seems as if that is not the case, and he got a ton of opportunity. Either way, I thought Cunnin was pretty good overall tonight. But overall, I thought this line was just okay. They had bad stretches, and then they had some pretty decent stretches. Again, just like line one, I felt like they weren't cohesive enough and they weren't all working as a team, as a line, and that's what really hurt them tonight. As of line three, you had Alexander Barabanov, Thomas Bordeleau, and Anthony Duclair. Barabanov, I thought, was really bad tonight. Really not, really just no hustle at all, or not even any compete at all. And I'm not sure if it's because he was put on the third line, but I generally see much better effort from Alexander Barabanov. And he was way too quiet for my liking all game. And so I just really hope that that's just a one off game. And I hope that he could come back in game two a lot stronger. Centering that line was Thomas Bordeleau, who I thought did okay. He was, playmaking, in the offensive end, um, and he had creativity in that offensive end, but in the defensive zone, he lost his man on multiple occasions. Just marking that guy that you're supposed to cover is a huge responsibility, especially if you're just not a good defensive team. You need, and especially not a good defensive player at all, you need to at least mark your guy. He was just playing zone defense, literally just standing in front of the net and not knowing who to cover. It was really poor quality on his part. But I don't want to give him a pass, but I will this game because these forwards, he was going against William Carlson, who is just a dynamic player, and going against him for um the first game that you're really, it's not his first NHL game, but first game this year. It's really difficult to play a high end player like that. So we'll see what he does against the Avalanche. Anthony Duclair was on the right wing on this line, and you could really see Anthony Duclair's speed. It's very evident when he crosses the neutral zone, working his way into that offense, like past the offensive blue line. And he's just more speedy than any other shark that is playing. And you could really tell him and Zadina have that burst of speed and have that extra gear that I don't see any other Sharks players having. But I really felt Vegas almost was double teaming him at times when he came across that offensive blue line, and made him give up the puck on multiple occasions, and really made other people on that line beat them. And the other two did not. So, unfortunately, Duclair wasn't getting off on the right foot tonight just because of that. But overall, this line was just okay. Again, another just okay line. I would say more bad than good though. So you want to see more improvement, more cohesion on this line as well. Line number four, you had Giovanni Smith, Nico Sturm, and Fabian Zetterlin. You see Smith was another player that was just really a standout. He was one of the standout players as well. He worked hard. He gave out a ton of effort, and he threw around his body. He got some shots on net from good scoring opportunities, and he's just hard to play against. And that's what Coach Quinn asked about from all these players to do, and he was the one that gave that effort tonight. I thought him and Zadina were the two best players giving that effort, along with Nico Sturm actually. But talking about Nico Sturm, I thought he was centering this line, and I thought he was pretty good, and he created a lot of offensive zone pressure for long periods of time, but never really getting himself into good scoring areas. So that's something that he might need to work on instead of just bringing the puck in. I think he needs to bring the puck in and then get to that front of the net instead of going behind the net to create opportunity. He was working hard to, pass to the open players like Giovanni Smith and Fabian Zetterlund, and I thought he did a really good job on creating those opportunities. But on the right wing, you had Fabian Zetterlund, who I just mentioned. I thought he, played a lot better than he did last year. He was working hard. He won some puck battles down low, which allowed Smith to get a few shots on goal. He too also had a nice shot on goal, though, and I believe that happened in the second period. It did go into the breadbasket of the goalie, but it was really hard shot, and just getting more pucks to the net was a key of mine, especially for this fourth line. Overall, this fourth line I felt was the best Sharks line all night, and that is not what you want from a hockey team if you are a fan of the Sharks or the coach of the Sharks for that matter. So unfortunately, this was the best line. Getting into the D pairings, though, you had Ferraro and Burrows, which I thought Ferraro played with the puck too much in his own zone. He always passes the puck behind the net to try and get it to his other D partner, with space. But Vegas forecheck is so good. They read it and always hemmed us into our own zone. And Ferraro just needs to look to chip along the boards where he's being pressured and just get it out of the zone rather than just keeping it and wheeling it around behind the net. It's just too many times we're getting caught down low and turning the puck over. And I know that he was a -2. I don't think he played very well, but that's just my opinion. And then Burrows, who I thought had an okay game. He was actually a -3 all night, but I don't fault him on each of those goals, but I do wish he just doesn't wheel it around the net as well. I think he just needed to chip it out more and let the offensive players force turnovers in the neutral zone. So overall, I felt this D pairing was not very good tonight. Next, you had Marc-Edouard Vlasic and Matt Benning. I thought Vlasic played fine. I felt this line too plays with the puck in the defensive zone way too much, and they also get hemmed in. Vlasic doesn't really use his body that much anymore, and really just stick checks and plays virtually in front of the net all the time and plays net front presence rather than attacking the player's body, and it often leads to a lot of defensive zone pressure. Then on his other D pairing is Matt Benning, where I thought he had a terrible game. He just doesn't know how to get it to the forwards for some reason. I just feel that all night he was losing puck battles and in the defensive zone. There's no offensive zone pressure. I mean, when Matt Benning does get a shot, like it can be very, very good. He does shoot it low and hard, but he didn't get any opportunity tonight because he was literally in his own zone, unfortunately. Lastly, you had Henry Thrun and Jan Ruda, where yet another D pairing getting hemmed into their own zone too much. At least I seen Henry Thrun working hard and trying to win puck battles. He didn't win them most of the time, but he did try. Like I felt like some of the other deep pairings did not even try. He did try. Then you had Jan Ruda, who I thought actually was steady and won most of the puck battles in the defensive zone, where he was able to get the pucks out on most occasions. So that was good. His breakouts were fine. Overall, I did think this was the best D pairing out of the group, but none of these D pairings were good at all, in my opinion. Unfortunately, Sharks fans, it was just yet another disappointing game by the Sharks and yet another home loss. I think Sharks fans, have seen and felt that too often last season, and I hope this doesn't become yet another poor performing Sharks team. But look for David Quinn to make some changes in the game tomorrow against the Avs, and hopefully it's along the D pairings because that was just awful. Anyways, that's going to be it for me, Sharks fans. For on my Sharks versus Golden Knights game 1 review. Look for my Sharks versus Avs preview tomorrow. If you like this content, please think about subscribing to get all my content at your fingertips. Thanks for stopping by, Sharks fans. Peace.